Have you heard of John Stossel? I have. I like him a lot. As a reporter, I've watched him over the decades, all the way back going to the 2020 days when he was on 2020 and then on Fox News, Fox Business. Now he has his own YouTube channel, about 1 million plus subscribers. And I would actually also read his weekly columns on occasion. When I'm at work waiting for my computer to reboot, I'd read an article by him or Thomas Sowell or Walter E. Williams. I even have several of his books, Myths, Lies, and Downright Stupidity. That's one. I've got Give Me a Break by John Stossel. Right? I've also got No They Can't by John Stossel, a book that he wrote in response to Barack Obama's Yes We Can, or Si Se Puede. So this video is not going to be a slam on him. I'm obviously a fan, but he's got a video where the thumbnail says Myths of the Good Old Days. And I know he's basing things off of some research and data that he and his team came up with, and it could very well be true, but maybe not. You tell me, does this sound like the truth that you're living? Let's take a look.
Have you heard how young people suffer today?
I scream at the top of my lungs. Ah!
Social media is filled with videos that say,
younger generations are finding it harder and harder to get reliable jobs, afford comfortable homes, start a family.
We baby boomers had things so much easier.
Your father could somehow afford a house, a car, and also put multiple kids through college.
All right, I've heard that stat too, and I've seen the single income household where my grandfather was the breadwinner, 8 kids. None of them went to college, and I don't think there was money to send them there for that either. So I've always, when I've seen those memes, I thought, phooey, that's not true. But let's continue.
And now it's damn near impossible for normal people to get ahead financially or shoot, even own a home.
This meme gets millions of views. Once upon a time, meaning when I was a kid, a family could own a home, a car, and send their kids to college, all on one income. This meme is all over the internet. People believe it.
And that's really a fantasy?
Economist Norbert Michel. It's not true.
No, it seems really great to think that everything was so awesome back then, but it wasn't. Materially, we are so much better off now than we were in the 60s and 70s.
While young people get clicks asking, what's the point of working?
You can't even live in a house. Most people don't live in houses because it's too expensive.
That's just a factual mistake.
Census data show more Americans own homes today than did when I was a kid.
People are still buying homes, but it is far more expensive for them to be buying homes.
Progressives like...
Right. He said more people own homes today than when he was growing up. I have a graphic that we'll cover to kind of really break that down and maybe explain why people are feeling things are different. Let's continue.
Was a kid.
People are still buying homes, but it is far more expensive for them to be buying homes.
Progressives like Columbia professor Jeremy Ney here giving a TED talk about how inequality is a matter of life and death say the meme is right on.
This is correct.
That is correct.
But it's misleading. Houses are more expensive today, but they're bigger and nicer.
The homes that we're buying now.
That's true. I was surprised. I didn't really pay attention to square footage until I got my first house, and I was surprised to see how close it was in square footage to my grandfather's house, who had 8 children. The square footage of my first house, which wasn't that big, I think it was about 1,750 square feet. Because of the internet, you can go online and look what was the square foot of anybody's house, and I could see the square footage of my grandparents' home was close to what mine was. And that was my first house out of the gate. So I'll give them that. Let's continue.
Now, are not the homes that people were buying in the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
4-bed, 3-bath with a 2-car garage.
We have bigger homes, better equipped homes.
Modern homes are much bigger than homes were when I was a kid. They're twice as likely to have central air, dishwashers, garbage disposals. Almost all homes now have washers and dryers. They didn't used to. The popular meme doesn't mention that.
That's true as well. The home that my grandparents had, it didn't start off with a washer and dryer because it didn't start off that way. And that's why the washer, when they got one, was in the kitchen. So I think it was clamped on after the fact, or maybe there were hookups there, but there wasn't a hookup for a dryer. My grandmother was putting things on a drying line in the backyard. Later on, when they took their garage and turned that into a living room, then they had hookups in that room for central air and for a dryer, but it didn't start out that way. So he's right about that.
Homes were cheaper then because they're what people today call lousy homes.
The costs are still 10, 20 times higher.
No, they're not. Not if you adjust for inflation. Plus,
we spend a smaller share of our income on food, clothing, and housing than we did.
Here's the data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics.
Let's take a look at that. I know my grandparents' house was about 30 grand.
Americans now spend less of our money on food, clothing, and shelter.
We have a lot more things, and we don't have to work as hard to get them.
When I was a kid, few people lived like people do now.
Now it's the norm to go out for lunch. It's the norm to go out for dinner, or to order in, or to get Uber Eats.
My family...
That's not the norm for me or my family. We're cutting down on that stuff big time because of the cost.
They never went out to eat.
People didn't have enough money.
Also, back then, families didn't fly places for vacation because flying cost so much more. Adjusted for inflation, a cross-country flight cost more than $1,000. Now it's about $300.
People did not just go on vacation. People did not fly all across the country.
But TikTokers say we young people have it so much tougher.
Hard work is not enough to make it anymore.
The game changed on the younger generation, right? Hard work alone is not enough because the deck is stacked against so many folks.
The idea that nobody had to work hard, that everybody had job security, whereas opposed to now, nobody does, is absolutely ridiculous. My dad would have laughed at that, and he should have. Income is definitely higher. Jobs are more plentiful. Opportunities are more plentiful.
The job offer in under 30 minutes.
Unemployment today is half what it was when I was a young reporter.
I got a college degree.
Back to that meme, which says, a family then could afford to send their kids to college. Well, college was much cheaper then. But even so,
most people didn't go to college. Roughly half of the labor force didn't even finish high school. That's unheard of nowadays.
Finally, yes, a family could own a car, but it was nothing like today's cars.
American cars were so absolutely and unutterably awful.
They rusted quickly, and now cars last more than twice as long. Nate tweets that jobs that once provided high school grads with middle-class stability now offer poverty wages. But overall, Gen Z does better. The Economist points out that Gen Z incomes are 50% higher than what we baby boomers earned. Still, this woman gets hundreds of thousands of likes saying,
Gen Z is the first generation where they're same age as their parents. They're making less money, not more.
No, they aren't. And it's not just progressives who spout these myths.
Families in the old days, they saved money.
We don't have a great country anymore.
We're going to go back to the old days.
Why do people put out this misinformation?
Politically, it sells. And it makes it really easy for a politician to say, I'm going to fix it. We always have a tendency to believe in the things that are wrong and that are bad. And that's unfortunate because overall, most people have been doing much, much better.
To counter the misinformation, Stossel TV created a more accurate meme. Once upon a time, a family who never ate out could afford a smaller home, a car that didn't last long, and they didn't send their kids to college, all on one income.
All right, so what do you think? I said I'd have some other things to show. Let's take a look at that. I was curious about what the average household income is, and they have a couple of numbers here. One says around $106,000 $400 is the average, but they also say median household income is often more accurate, considered a more accurate representation of typical earnings. And they're saying that was $83,730. Okay, let's take that into account. I've noticed that the price of gold is now $4,386, or basically $4,387. 5 years ago, it was just $1,857, $1,858. That's about a 136% increase. And the reason I bring that up is because if you know anything about The Creature from Jekyll Island, or the author of that book, G. Edward Griffin, he talks about how an ounce of gold pretty much buys the same thing today as it always has. You go back to ancient Rome, an ounce of gold would have bought a man a very nice robe, custom-made, handmade belt, and some nice sandals. Today, that ounce of gold, $4,386, will buy a really nice custom-made suit, a really nice pair of top-of-the-line shoes, and a handmade belt. But for it to go up in the past 5 years, I mean, it's now $4,386. 5 years ago, it was $1,858. For it to go up 136% in 5 years, has your income gone up 136%? Mine hasn't. So that's something else to consider. This story also here is something to consider. Sticker shock. Car prices top 50K for the first time in the U.S. according to Kelley Blue Book. And it does say the average transaction price of a new vehicle topped 50K for the first time. That doesn't necessarily mean that the average new car being produced costs 50 grand. It's the average transaction. So maybe people just aren't buying some of the lower cost things, or maybe this is a good indicator. I know it even says here, we've been expecting to break the 50K mark because it was only a matter of time. When you consider the best-selling vehicle in America is the Ford pickup truck, and it costs north of $65,000. It's hard to find a pickup truck for less than 50K. Crazy. Especially when you look at the average household median household income is $83,730. So that's roughly 5/8 of that going into your vehicle. 60-something% of your take-home pay going into a vehicle to get from point A to point B. But here's the biggest thing that kind of counters to me some of the stuff we saw in the John Stossel video. This thing here, which talks about home ownership rates by age. He did say they showed that in 1950, 55% of people owned their own home, whereas today 65% of people own their own home. Well, they're counting all ages. And we have a lot of old people. This chart specifically compares 35-year-olds and 60-year-olds. The blue line at the bottom represent 35-year-olds over time, back from 1960 up until almost today, 2021. The chocolate or mocha line, brown line, whatever you want to call it, represents 60-year-olds. And you see when you go back to 1960, this is from the U.S. Census Bureau, by the way. So when you go back to 1960, you see you have you're almost as likely to see a 35-year-old own their own home as a 65-year-old. Almost as likely in 1960, but you see how they diverge from one another over time. But man, this is striking to see how much they've separated from one another. The 35-year-old, as of roughly 2021, has now a 54% chance of owning their own home, whereas the 60-year-old still about 75%. So that says a lot to me. Plus, just from what I see, I mean, we had the state fair. They just had their last weekend. If you look here on YouTube, you'll find plenty of people talking about the Texas State Fair and how it was not as crowded as it has been in the past because of the cost. Some people are reporting a turkey leg, $25, $28 for a turkey leg. And just other things just cost too much money. So I like to be an optimist, but mercy, I can't say that things are so much better. So you tell me, are you feeling it? That all of these things that they're bringing up are just myths? Are we missing something, or are they missing something? I will say this. I did see a story here recently that talked about how some of these cities can have someone commit a crime, which is a felony, but then they'll get them to plead at a misdemeanor level. And they use that over and over and over again so that politicians can come out and say, look, crime is actually taking a fall. Crime is actually lower. We have fewer felonies. When if they were a CEO or C-level person at a company and they signed off on those kind of numbers, they could go to prison. But a politician, not so much, because they want to be able to talk about how crime is not as bad as people are feeling it. Is that happening here? Are the numbers that we saw that Stossel and the people he interviewed, are those numbers skewed? But you tell me, what do you think? I don't think it's as positive as much as I want to be optimistic. I think some of the numbers are skewed the way they skew crime statistics. That's what I think. If this is your first time checking me out, please consider subscribing. I think I'm at now 53 subscribers, and I think this is my 58th video. I would like to get that inverted. I'd like to have more subscribers than the number of videos I've produced. Maybe you can help me be a part of that growth. I don't need to do this for income right now, thankfully, but I might have to in the future. I don't know. I was one of those people that they say, oh, we have plenty of jobs. I wasn't feeling that. And that's how I kind of got this started, talking about, I didn't know at the time how many Americans are actually minorities in IT. That's the field that I'm in. But consider subscribing, consider sharing this, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.